Carolyn says, how can I help my son without teaching him to change himself in the following situation? But do I have that? Did you send that to me? Oh, okay, here we go. He is 9 and feels insecure and uncomfortable in social settings, even when one-on-one. He tends to make funny faces instead of responding with words, and then we prompt word responses and he will. But then I've embarrassed him in front of the other person in the conversation. He tends to have his arms in an awkward stance and make a funny face when he should be responding. I should also add that he is in a mainstream school and fully verbal. This breaks my heart a little bit because I remember a time, Ev, when I came to you because Jem was still having a little bit of difficulties. And one of the things that we had, he walked like a cartoon character. And the other kids would look at it and go, because when you just said he has a funny stance, and Jem would just sort of galump along and walk like a cartoon character. And you're the one who helped us with that, Ev. You're the one who pointed it out to me and said, you know, what is this about? And here's what we're going to do about it. Because it was an inefficient walk to begin with, but it was this awkward way of holding himself. So that breaks my heart a little bit that your guy, your 10-year-old, is having issues, but of a different nature, but still that awkward sort of thing. So Ev, what do you want to say to this?
I would say not in the situation is when you're going to practice inhibiting his facial expressions. This kind of happens, you know, there is something neurologically, like I think it has, one time, this is research from years and years ago, but, you know, there is research out there that when they would show faces of people to, sometimes it would, you know, faces would show up in the motor area, faces would show up in the vision area, it'd show up in the emotion, like just, it was random places versus there is a really specific area that faces show up for, you know, neurotypical individuals. So I think it's related to something in there, but it usually comes around in elementary school, and it usually has to do with some kind of a little bit more of an intense or novel situation where our child has to respond. And instead of responding what would be so-called the right way, they make faces or they'll like laugh suddenly, almost like a nervous laughter, or just, it's just some facial expression comes out inappropriately. And what I actually would do is first I would talk about the situations to make sure they understand whatever the situation was. And a lot of times it would come in situations like with a dog dying or a pet dying and a kid's talking about it and then our kid laughs. And then all the other kids get mad at our kid in the classroom. And so we talk to make sure they understand what, you know, whatever the situation is. But more than anything, we tell them, you know, in those situations, people will read your face. And when they read your face, it's the same thing as shouting words. And I've had 9-year-old boys tell me that I'm lying to them when I tell them facial expressions mean more than the words coming out of their mouth. I've had lots of ASD boys tell me, you know, I think you're wrong. But it's important that he understand that his face does communicate a lot, especially since he is verbal. And facial expressions actually mean more than vocal words a lot of times in all our social interaction. So this is one area that I think that there's a lot of practice that needs to happen. And people don't spend a lot of time focusing on it, but those nonverbal cues that we give to people are an issue for so many people. So I always say at home, you kind of have to practice, like make your face, you don't even have to make it into another emotion. You can just make it blank. and it takes that, you know, it's an executive function skill to be able to control your face and saying it. And we've all had those experiences. Like I actually had an ASD boy who I had seen when he was 10. And when he came back when he was 20, his mom called me and said, can you come help him? And I said, I haven't seen him in 10 years. Like, what do you, like, I think there's probably somebody else. She's like, no. He broke up with his girlfriend and he's kind of a mess. And I said, well, that's actually normal. And she's like, just come talk to him. So I went and talked to him and there wasn't really much to do. He was just a normal, you know, breakup. But then right before he went back to school, he called and he's like, can I see you? And I said, okay, so I went, and he's like, if I see her on campus, what should I do? What intrusive means, just you can say hi, you can be polite. And then suddenly I was just like, you have to watch your face. And he was like, well, what does that mean? And I told him, he's like, I don't know if I could do that. So we actually practiced. Like I was bringing up situations, and it was fun. I mean, we started funny where like I brought up a food that he hated, and I was like, I'm going to make you eat this. And what does your face say? And he was like horrified. I said, now let's practice. I'm going to say this. I'm going to make you eat this, and I might make you eat this because it's right here. But you need to show me, what a blank expression is. And so we actually practiced a blank expression with something that wasn't as serious. And then we slowly built up kind of the seriousness or the situations so that he actually started to have some control over his faces. And I've seen that in kids, like, the expressions that this mom is talking about, I've seen it across many, many kids. And a lot of times it's practicing at home to not show it first. And the thing is, kids at his age, if he's verbal and he's understanding a lot, these kids are so smart. There's a whole group of kids that know when they don't know everything and they don't understand what's going on. And that's what makes them anxious and uncomfortable, and they don't know what to do. If you took a neurotypical kid, they'd have some of those behaviors, but they would usually channel that behavior into vocal language. They would ask questions so that they could get more information on what's happening, so that they would gain more control of the situation. They would be more interactive in terms of getting whatever information they need, or if they don't understand, they would excuse themselves from the situation. There's just all these things that they would do to not be put in that place where they feel uncomfortable. But because our kids, there's a lot of holes in their language, there's a lot of holes in their knowledge, especially cultural knowledge, where nobody actually teaches you what's cool or not cool. A lot of these kids just need some practice. So initially what I do is, just because I don't want our kid to be teased and everything, if that facial expression is something that is going to gather some kind of the attention of kids that you don't want, I'm like, okay, let's get rid of that first. So we actually practice, like, okay, how do you have like a blank expression or a neutral expression, so that actually goes away. And then along the way, that there's probably a lot of holes in pragmatic language and social language that's missing. Just the ability, if you look at kids who get anxiety, a lot of it is they lack control, and that's what builds the anxiety in them. And so many of our kids on the spectrum, when they start to get that anxiety in those upper grades, it's because they know they're missing something, but they don't know what they're missing. And so you need to get them to start asking questions, because that's how you're going to know how to teach him what he's not understanding. So be able to present really good questions. Like, in this situation, you do that. When we were with these people, you did this other thing. Like, why? Why did you not do what you told me to do last time? And those are the questions that will help you actually be able to teach them what they're missing. If you just go in and just start talking to them about whatever it is and giving them information, you don't know what disconnect or what illogical thinking is going on. So like the way that we work with little kids, I always say we take baseline behaviors, right, on data. I always say for the older kids, before you start teaching them how to do something or what the rule is, you need to get a baseline understanding of what they're thinking. All those social situations, get a baseline of what they know, what they understand, and then you can fill in the holes. But if you just, too many people just come in and just start teaching and without knowing what the holes are or what weird logic is there. And so that's what I would encourage you to do, those things.
Hey, thanks for watching Autism Live. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.